So today we're going to be seeing at what are the main teachings that we find in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, in order for us to do that, first of all, let's remember that Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses. And in average, Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, more or less comes around in 1,000 pages format. So that's a lot of pages to read. And yes, sometimes we do struggle. And many of us, sometimes we think that we will rather have some study guide, and generally there are programs such as Bhakti Shastri or other study groups. But in this short video, we will present you with the main things that we need to remember in order to understand what Bhagavad Gita is all about. Bhagavad Gita, 700 verses, yes, and we have 18 chapters. The Acharyas and Srila Prabhupada also divide these 18 chapters in 3 sections. 1 to 6, the first section. 7 to 12, the second section. And 13 to 18, the third section. So, often Srila Prabhupada used to say that if we remember one word, one verse, one line, our life will be perfected. So that's a strategy we're going to use in this sort of training. One word. We have 3 sections and we want you to remember one word per each of these sections. Section 1, it's all about you. So that's the only word that we require you to remember. First section, it's all about you. And we will explain why this section emphasizes on what you and I and every one of us need to know in order to achieve perfection. We have chapter 1, which talks about Arjuna's lamentation. What's the title? Observing the armies in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. But the most important thing of that chapter, at least in the philosophical context, is what happens after Arjuna observed the armies in the battlefield. What happened? Arjuna was lamenting. So chapter 1 emphasizes the lamentation of Arjuna. So the one word for chapter 1 is lamentation. Then Krishna, after Arjuna requested him to instruct him on the principles of life, higher principles of life, chapter 2, as we know, the contents of the Gita summarized. And what this chapter talks about the most is about our identity. So chapter 1, lamentation. Chapter 2, identity. Arjuna gets a little confused and he says, okay, I'm a spirit soul, I'm not the body. However, you are asking me to fight. So what should I do? Chapter 3, Karma Yoga. What is your duty? In common terms, nowadays we can say, what is your job? So, we have chapter 4 now. After Arjuna gets to know or reminded by Krishna who he is, then Krishna tells him further what he needs to do. And then, chapter 4, the topic is knowledge, what we need to know. So it's just like when we lose our identity card or our passport, and then we forgot due to amnesia or to some accident, to some conditioning. We forget who we are, we forget what we need to do, and we forget what is our qualification, what is our study level, what is our training. So these are the things that Krishna initially in the Bhagavad Gita is teaching Arjuna. Chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4 content the main instructions of Krishna. And this is what Prabhupada called the ABC of a spiritual life. Now, chapter 5, a very interesting chapter. What's the title? Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. What does that mean? Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Very similar to chapter 3. In Karma Yoga, in chapter 3, Krishna explains to Arjuna what he needs to do. Sacrifice, work for Krishna. In chapter 5, the result of such acting will be presented. So, in chapter 5, you will know what's the result of applying chapter 2, 3, and 4. So 2, 3, and 4 are like the medicine of the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 5 is the result. Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying, all what you need to do is to check some verses from this chapter. For example, in chapter 5, if you read text number 29, where Krishna explained that what is the result of Krishna consciousness, or the first result of applying chapter 2, 3, and 4 is peace. Gyatva shantim richati. You will obtain peace. Just like when you get your salary, your paycheck, that's what you get. This is what we call the before and after chapter. This is before lamentation. This is after. The result, your peace. So, to conclude this section, we have chapter 6. Chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. What does dhyana mean? Meditation. And what does meditation mean? It's a heightened form of thinking. So here we have Dhyana Yoga, the meditation that links us with the Supreme. So Krishna is explaining to us that what we need to think of here in order to achieve perfection. So, chapter 6 is about your thinking. Right? Again, very simple. If we want to confirm that this chapter is about your thinking, you just need to read the last verse of that chapter. Krishna explains that in order for us to achieve perfection, we need to think of Him. So in this way, we are just mentioning one example, one word. Sometimes we will refer to one verse of that particular chapter. You don't have to remember many things. We understand in this day and age, we all are very busy. We generally don't have the time to study so much. But if you read and remember some of these simple tips, then it will be easier for us to remember Bhagavad Gita in the context. So we have the 6 first chapters of the first section. And the word that we need to remember is you. First section is all about you. Now let's move on to the second section. Second section talks about Krishna. If you doubt what I'm saying, just analyze the title of the chapters. We have chapter 7. How's it called? Knowledge of the Absolute. Who is the Absolute? Krishna. We have chapter 8. Attaining the Supreme. Again, who is the Supreme? Krishna. Chapter 9. The most confidential knowledge. About whom? About Krishna. Chapter 10. The opulence of the Absolute. Again, the word is there. Absolute. Who is the Absolute? Chapter 11. The universal form. The different forms of Krishna will be presented in this particular chapter. And chapter 12. End of the second section, devotional service. The first section has one example. And that example is you are suffering from amnesia. This is an example that Srila Prabhupada gives. Amnesia. You lost your mind. You lost your sense of consciousness. You don't know who you are. You don't know what's your job. You don't know what's your qualification, what your study level. You don't understand what is the result that you are looking for in your life. And you have lost your sense of thinking. So this is the sample, or this is the analogy from chapter 1. So in section 2, we have a different example. The example is a job interview. So many of you will be very easily related to this particular comparison. In chapter 3, Krishna offers us a job. Jagyartha. Work for me, Krishna says, chapter 3, text number 9. And then he explains several things about us. First of all, he gives us back our memory, our identity card, our passport. Now, what's going to happen in chapter 7 onwards until chapter 12, in the second section, Krishna is going to run, like we say, like a job interview. The first chapter of this section, it's about Krishna being the boss. What's the chapter title? The knowledge of the Absolute. Srila Prabhupada explains in the first 2 lines of the introduction to the Srimad Bhagavatam that when the word Absolute comes up, refers to Krishna and his energies. And that's exactly what is explained in this chapter. Now, remember I said one word. What is that one word that we need to learn? I'm going to use a very contemporary word many of us can identify with. Who is the boss? In Chapter 7, Krishna is establishing his supremacy. Who is the absolute boss? Now, if you doubt what I'm saying, you can check just the last verse of this chapter. Text number 30, where Krishna explains the reasons why he's the boss. Number 1, he is the owner of everything, Adibhuta. Secondly, he is the controller of everything, Adidaiva. And thirdly, he is the enjoyer of everything, Adijagya. So these 3 reasons are given in the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 30. Moving on, chapter 8, attaining the Supreme. So remember, the analogy here is a job interview. Krishna asks us, work for me, work for us, right? So, chapter 7, first of all, job interview, who's the boss here? Chapter 8, what's going to be your payment? When we go for a job, we want to know what is the salary, what are the terms and conditions, what benefits do we have, is there insurance, and all those sort of things. So in chapter 8, Krishna wants to convince us to work for him. And what he does, he says, I'm going to give you something that nobody else is going to give you. We all have some kind of insurance, some kind of, gratuity, and retirement packages and things like that. So Krishna offers us in chapter 8 a life insurance, or eternal life insurance, a spiritual life insurance. What Krishna says here, you work for me, after you finish your work, your working life as it is called, I will take care of you. You will come to me. So in chapter 8 we have insurance. We can say life insurance. It refers to spiritual life insurance. And this is a bonus for your work. Chapter 9. This is the peak of the mountain of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the topmost, the most confidential subject matter in the whole book. And it's called the most confidential knowledge. The analogy that we give in this particular chapter is the password. Right? We all have confidential knowledge. We all have passwords. We have passwords for our email accounts. We have passwords for our Facebook accounts. We have passwords for our bank accounts, ATM, etc. So in this particular chapter, Krishna is giving us the password. Krishna is saying, come and work for me. I am the boss here. I will give you this benefit. After all your work, you will come to me. No problems. And I also will give you my password. Imagine if your boss gives you his ATM card, says, here, my credit card, these are my password. You can use it as much as you like. So chapter 9 talks about the password. And why I'm emphasizing or using this analogy? Because here, Krishna used the word bhakti. 6-letter word. We all know it, we use it all the time. Bhakti, it's what opens the doors of Krishna's world, Krishna consciousness. Krishna explains, Bhaktimam abhigyanati. Without bhakti, you cannot know me. Patram pushpam phalam tuyam jobe bhaktya prayachati. I will accept even a simple offering of water, fruits, or flower, if you offer with bhakti. So here, in this particular chapter, the most confidential knowledge is the love that Krishna has with his devotees, or the exchange of love that they have. So, chapter 9, the word password, and the password is bhakti. Chapter 10, the opulence of the Absolute. Many things of how to remember Krishna in this particular chapter are explained, but I'm going to make it really simple. And I will talk about the main opulence of Krishna, the main opulence of the Lord. It's explained in the 4 verses, the essential verses of the Bhagavad Gita, called Chaturshloki. Chapter 10 takes 8, 9, 10, and 11. Again, chapter 10 takes 8, 9, 10, and 11. You don't have time to read the 700 verses, at least read these 4 verses. Now, in these 4 verses, there's something very special which is described. What is that? The opulence of the Absolute are his devotees. The 4 verses talk 1/3 or 1/2 of the 4 verses talks about Krishna. The other 3.5 verses talk about the devotees. So Krishna is explaining that the main opulence, the most dear thing for him, the most confidential aspect of his relationship are his bhaktas, his devotees. So, in chapter 9 we remember one word, the password, bhakti. In chapter 10, the word is bhaktas. Now, chapter 11, very interesting chapter, universal form. In this chapter, basically, Krishna shows three aspects of his manifestations. One is the universal form. The boss has companies everywhere. He's everywhere. He has offices in all the major cities and all the continents of the world. Also, he has a localized form, right? The Narayan form, the formal, the official boss form. 4 arms, very well dressed, armor and helmets and things like that. He is definitely the boss. But Krishna shows at the end of the chapter his personal form. What is his personal form? Prabhupada explains in 1155, Syamasundar, the form with two hands playing the flute, the most intimate and primordial form of Krishna. So, chapter 11, we find the forms of the Lord. 3 forms. In chapter 12, the final chapter of this section, we find here how to be the best worker. If we say in that context, Krishna explains how to be a dear devotee to him, a very dear devotee, and a very, very dear devotee of Krishna. So he explains what we call the KPIs, or Key Performance Indicator. That's chapter 12. Here, we can call it the manual, or the contract. When you join an office, a company, generally you're giving an induction manual. This is what you have to do. All the fine prints are there. These are the criteria, your assessment, etc. So in chapter 12, called Devotional Service, Krishna is explaining how is that we have to perform that service so we get our reward accordingly. Dear, and very, very dear devotee of the Lord. So now chapter 13 is the first one of the last section. We cover first section. Remember the first word, it's all about you. The middle section, it's all about Krishna. And the last section, it's about the connection between these two, yourself and Krishna. Now, where does this happen? Generally in the prison house. And where is that prison house? This material world. So this connection happens in this material world. That's why the Bhagavad Gita's last section refers all to this material world. And I will explain how these different chapters present different teachings about how Krishna and the Jiva, you and I, can be connected with him, but in this material world. So we have chapter 13. Chapter 13, one of the most philosophical chapters, and a quite taxing title, Nature, Enjoy, and Consciousness. How can we explain this in a few words, in a few lines or sentences? In chapter 13, basically, we want you to remember only one word. Let me give you an analogy. Job interview went successful, and you got the job. In fact, just like Krishna offered the job to Arjuna in chapter 3, in chapter 10, he already accepted the terms and conditions, and he signed the contract, sort of thing. In chapter 13, what happened before that, we have a problem. The problem is you got the job, but you are in jail. For some reason, for one cause or another, you ended up in jail, and thus you are limited, you are conditioned, you are imprisoned, and you cannot be free because of the body, because of your karma, because of the previous criminal acts. So you are in prison house. So Krishna here gives us a very nice, very magnanimous approach to help us. And what he does is that he offers to be our witness and our advocate. He can be our lawyer. We generally say the Lord in the heart. So that's the word that we want you to remember in this particular chapter, Paramatma. And what does Paramatma do? Paramatma is constantly with you, 24/7. And as we say, the Lord in the heart, the the line that we request you to remember, it's the lawyer in the heart. Paramatma basically acts as the lawyer in your heart. And he says in this chapter that he will protect you. He will be your witness. That's what the Puranas explain, Puranas, Upanishads, that there are two birds in the same tree, and once the finite soul turns to the supreme bird, super soul, then his path of liberation is guaranteed. So we have chapter 13, the word to remember in this chapter is Paramatma, or the lawyer in the heart. Chapter 14, you are in prison. Generally prisons have bars. So Krishna explains the three modes of material nature. The bars in this prison house are made of three elements. And just like when you go to the warehouse and buy the different tools and different gadgets to cut these bars, maybe wood, maybe brass, maybe iron, maybe gold, maybe whatever it is, in this chapter, Krishna gives us the tools and the means, how can we cut these prison bars. So, very simple, three prison bars, mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. Chapter 15, Krishna gives us a very clear plan, or escape plan, we rather call it, how to be free from all this situation, all this prison environment that we are. Chapter 15, it's called the Yoga of the Supreme. And one word we want you to remember for this chapter, it's the escape plan. Two words. Escape plan. Or the map. You know, sometimes we hear these stories about people escaping from the prison house, and they have a plan where the gate and the towers and the exits and the pipes and all these sort of things, so they have to make tunnels and how to get out from there. So in the same way, Krishna in chapter 15 brings us the escape plan. And what is that escape plan? It's the Vedas. In that particular chapter, in text 15, Krishna says, Vedas Chasarvar Ahameva Vedyo. I am the compiler of the Vedas. I am to be known through the Vedas. So through the Vedas, we can escape. Right? So in a very simple way, we can remember chapter 15, the Vedas. And the verse to remember in that particular chapter, it's text 15. So it's very simple, 15:15. So now chapter 16. Chapter 16's title is Divine and Demoniac Nature. Now let's remember, we're in the prison house. And what happens in the prison house? The lawyer generally recommends us, don't hang out with the wrong people. Why? Because your sentence could be extended. In the same way, if we hang out with the right people and we have good behavior, then because of our behavior, our sentence could be reduced. So in that way, chapter 16 explained to us the different kind of people that we find in this world, and with those who we don't have to associate in order for us to be able to escape from the prison house or be let free. So we have one word, and that word is the inmates. Right? Remember the analogy? The prison house. So it's chapter 16, the inmates. Divine and demoniac. Now, chapter 17. Chapter 17, it's called Divisions of Faith. What does that mean? That sometimes, because of our religiosity, our spirituality, our piety, this material world starts looking not too bad. And we become very comfortable with the situation in the prison house. And Krishna is encouraging us that regardless what your situation is, you have to get out. Right? So, many things according to the modes are explained in this particular chapter. Different types of worships and different modes, renunciation, sacrifice, charity, etc. However, Krishna concludes this chapter in the last 4 verses, and he explains a 3-worded mantra. And the analogy we want to give in this particular context is that the simplest way to escape from the prison house is to have the key. So in this chapter, Krishna gives us the key. So that's the word that I'm requesting you to remember, the key. So what is that key? What is that concept that can open the doors of this prison house? It's a 3-worded mantra, 3-syllable mantra. And you find it in the last 4 verses of this particular chapter, and the mantra is Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. What does that mean? These 3 syllables contain the concept that it's given in the Vedas in order for us to be free. And basically means everything belongs to Krishna, everything needs to be offered to Krishna. The moment that you do that, automatically you become spiritualized, your life becomes pure, and you are able to get out. Now, Srila Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita finishes in 17 chapters, right? So the question is, why do we need the last chapter? So let's go back to our example. We are in the prison house. You're trying to contact your lawyer. Generally, lawyers are very expensive, but this lawyer is free of charge. However, let's just give the example that you cannot contact your lawyer for one reason or another. That you are not too good with handiwork, and then the bars are not cut. For some reason, you are cut up. You don't know how to read a plan, you don't know much geography or geometry, and you just get confused. So the Vedas, you don't know where it's north, south, etc. And you are in trouble. The Vedic path, it's not working for you somehow. And generally what happens when your mother or someone tells you don't do that, especially when we are little, you end up doing exactly what they tell you not to do. You hang around with the wrong crowd, and then your sentence get extended. So nothing is working. And then you go for the Om Tat Sat. I don't know Sanskrit, I don't know Jagyas, I'm not Vedic, I forgot all these things, I don't know how the key works, and everything started becoming very dark, very negative, and you get stuck, right? So the last chapter is the lawyer coming into your rescue, and he's telling you in a simple way all what you need to do, and this is a common and very, very known verse of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the essence of Bhagavad Gita, presented in verse 66 of chapter 18. Just forget about all the dharmas, just forget about everything else, and just surrender unto me. If nothing else works, just hold on to Krishna's instruction, guidance, lotus feet, and you can be free. So Krishna says, Sarva dharmam parityaya, mam ekam sharanam braya. Just surrender unto me and let's go out. Let's go out. Aham tvam sarva papevya. All the crimes that you have committed and the reason why you're here, it will be clear. Don't doubt. Aham tvam sarva papevya moksha sisyami masuchaha. Moksha means freedom. So he's offering us, if you just surrender, if you just continue to follow what Krishna is instructing you, then you will obtain moksha, liberation, and the path to devotional service is open for you. So in this way, we have finished the 3 sections of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's recap. The first section, it's all about you. The second section, it's about Krishna. The third section is about the prison house. The first section utilizes the analogy of the amnesia. You have forgotten, like when you lose a passport or your ID card, who you are, what you do, and what you know. And then also explains what is the result of knowing who you are, knowing what you need to do, and what you need to know. Peace, the first step to achieve eternal happiness. And then explains what's the thinking process required to achieve perfection. In the middle section, we have everything about Krishna. Why he's called the supreme boss. Why he's called the absolute. Right? The owner of everything, the controller of everything, the enjoyer of everything. What Krishna gives you as exchange, we may say, as a reward for the job that he has offered you and you are about to take. What is the password, the most intimate, confidential knowledge for devotees or for those who work for him, or serve him in love and devotion? Bhakti, that's our word. And 10, called the opulence of the absolute. Not all these mountains and not all these rivers and oceans and different opulences that the Lord explained in this particular chapter, but his most dear opulence, which are the bhaktas, presented in the 4 essential verses in chapter 10, called the Chatur Shloki. Chapter 11, the 3 forms of Krishna, universal, Narayan, and Syamasundar. The last one, the manual or the KPI, the key performance indicator. Some preachers call it Krishna Prema indicators. How to become the most dear devotee of Krishna. The last one, prison house, chapter 13 to 18. Krishna is acting as a lawyer. We sign up the contract in chapter 10, just like Arjuna did. But you're in jail, so you cannot go to work. So Krishna says, I will protect you. I will be with you. I will be your witness. I will stand out for you until you get out of this material world. Chapter 14, the 3 bars. How to cut these modes of material nature and be free. Chapter 15, he gives us the escape plan, the Vedas. Chapter 16, whom do we have to associate with? What's the nature that we have to reject in order for us to be free from that sentence that we have been given? Chapter 17, the simple key, Om Tat Sat. It's all about Jagya. It's all about sacrifice. So when you perform the word that Krishna refers to in chapter 3, the general word that Jagyas use is Om Tat Sat, meaning everything belongs to Krishna, thus everything needs to be offered to Krishna. That's the simple key to open this prison house. In chapter 18, when everything fails, just surrender unto Krishna. Krishna will take you out. So in this way, in a very simple, very summarized, very succinct way, we have presented the Bhagavad Gita. And this is for you to have a clear context of all the texts, of all the chapters, and remember with just one word, each of the sections and each of the chapters. So thank you very much, Hare Krishna. I hope you continue watching us in the different weekly videos that we will offer you in regards of the summarized study of Bhagavad Gita called Gita for Everyone or Gita Program. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.